If you thought 2024 was a pretty good year for Apple products, 2025 looks to be even bigger. On this episode of the Macworld Podcast, we're talking about Apple's loaded release schedule for the year. If you're pondering some major Apple purchases this year, you'll want to listen in. Welcome to the Macworld Podcast. I'm Roman Loyola here with Jason Cross.
Good morning.
And Michael Simon.
Hello, sir.
Bloomberg's Mark Gurman recently reported on Apple's product release schedule for 2025. He called it a loaded one. So on today's show, we're going to go over the report and talk about what it can mean for you. I mean, it's a whole year.
That was a little threatening, Roman. Can we make that friendlier?
Oh, it's a lot of stuff. So, I mean, we could start with January. January's already halfway done.
Yeah, we figured going month by month is probably the best way to talk through the year. At January, there's no major product, and even the beta, like the iOS schedule, they're in a beta of 18.3 and 15.3, which is like, it's not the next big feature release. It's kind of bug fixes and stuff. It's like a little polish, and then .4 is the next big feature release with the new Siri update. Like Severed Season 2 is like the big release this month.
Yeah, that's Friday of this week. It's got like the early reviews are out, and it's pretty positive. Most people say it's solid. Tries to build on the first season and continue that whole thing. Gets bigger, more characters, et cetera, et cetera. It's been 3 years. I forgot it's been 3 years since the first one, and man, it's like I was trying to remember like where we're at. I hope they have like a previously on, like an 8-minute previously on, because there was a lot. Yeah,
I went and watched we went looking for a YouTube recap, just because people do these recaps all the time. Most of them are from 2 years ago, basically when the season ended.
Sure.
And most of them are bad. They're either like 2 minutes long, which is like, that's going to be on the previously on, or one of them was like an hour long. And I'm like,
jeez,
that's not really a recap at that point.
That's like 2 episodes. They're only a half hour each, right?
We ended up finding one that was like 8 minutes long, and it would have been a terrible recap if you had not seen the season. You would be lost.
Okay. Yeah,
but it was good enough for like filling in, like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember
jogging your memory. Yeah. I literally don't remember where season 1 left off. Like it was a cliffhanger of sorts, right?
Yeah. I don't want to. I would tell you, but it's spoilers,
right? In case someone hasn't seen it, sure,
right,
sure.
Right. And plenty of people have it, which brings up the other. Apple is making the first season of Severance available for free until January 19th on the Roku channel. So it's like, if you're not an Apple TV Plus subscriber, if you have Roku or just a device with the Roku channel, which I think like Amazon Fire TV and stuff has that, or your smart TV or something, you can go watch the whole first season until the 19th. So you still got a few days to catch all of season 1 and decide if you want to subscribe to Apple TV Plus.
Besides the Apple TV stuff, there's not really anything else going on with January.
Yeah, we've gotten surprise announcements before. I don't think it was anything last year, but the year before we got the MacBook Pros, the M2 MacBook Pros, and I think HomePod it might have been early February, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen this year. Like the products that we're expecting in the first part of the year are for like spring. Like there's nothing left over from last year that we say, oh, well, where's that? Or where's this? I think that January is going to be basically nothing, including OS updates. Like I don't think they get anything.
Yeah, it's possible that the .3 OS updates drop at the end of this month, but there's not much to them.
Right. We're only in the second beta of that now anyway, so it could be still a couple more weeks.
Yeah, and there's not much in those betas. It's not a big update. Honestly, the best thing is that the calculator repeat function works again. It used to be like if you went 2 plus 2, you get 4, and then you could hit equals, and it would be 6 and equals 8. You know, it would just keep doing the last operation.
Mm-hmm.
And that broke with iOS 18, and everybody was big bad when they did that whole big, like, there's a new calculator, right? And the new calculator didn't do that. Everyone was upset, and it's back.
So it didn't break. They just took it away. They took the functionality
away. It just wasn't a feature of the new calculator app that is now that was part of the new OS releases last year that's on Mac and everything else. So, and everybody said, hey, I used to use that all the time. Like, other than that, there's really just not. It's like they changed an icon a little bit. That's what it's. That's what these features are.
I think you can create Genmoji on the Mac now, like where you can't do that.
Yes, that's true. They added that, I think, to the Mac.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a for a 0.3 update, which is usually has something, and 0.2 is huge. 0.4 is going to be even huge, more huge. Yeah. So yeah, 0.3 is kind of the comm between the two big updates.
Well, here's your segue. I think the 0.3 part of the reason for it is to add support for new MacBook Airs, which are supposed to come before the big spring event or whatever. They're supposed to. We're rumored to see a MacBook Air maybe in February.
Yeah, that could just pop up on the website. Like, it's not going to be much more than a chip.
Yep, it's M4.
It'll be the M4. Yeah,
the 13 and 15 as we know it now, but with the M4 in it,
and those will probably ship with camera.
Those will probably ship with macOS 15.3.
Yeah,
so that's for February, right? Could even drop late January. That's just going to be like a web release. It's supposed to be early in the year. It's going to be late January, maybe February.
Yeah, Mark Gurman said that the MacBook Air is coming, quote, relatively soon, unquote. Apple's already in production with them, so they're just ramping up their stock. And so it's just a matter of, I guess, pulling the trigger and deciding when they're going to do it.
Last year, it was March 4th was when the M3 model came out for the MacBook Air, which was also just kind of like a pretty tame refresh. It's funny, the like everything that, like, we don't know for sure, but everything that we read leads us to believe that the M3 was a massive problem for Apple's production. They're getting rid of it as quickly as possible. A bunch of products, including the Mac Studio, the Mac Pro, Vision Pro, even the iPad Pro, like, they just skipped it entirely. So maybe Jason, I don't know if you can shed a little bit of light on what you think the issue was, but there was, like, the M3 was definitely like a major headache for Apple production wise.
Yeah, just briefly, because we still have 10 months to get through. But so the Apple was the first to use TSMC's 3-nanometer process. That first version of the process that only Apple used was sort of, how can I put it? It was very expensive because a lot of the chips, its yield rate, like how many chips on the wafer are good. It was with that percentage of chips wasn't the best. It was, the second gen of the 3-nanometer process, their second revision of it, their updated revision of it, was always meant to be like slightly less density, but like much easier to manufacture, faster to manufacture, and much more affordable, therefore. And it would be manufactured in much greater volume so that it would serve a lot of other customers beyond Apple. And that's what they're using now. So it was just kind of like, these chips are way expensive. Let's get onto the new 3-nanometer process and get to the chips that are way easier to manufacture, way less expensive.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So that's the M4, and going forward,
that's the M4. That's the A18 and 18 Pro. As opposed to the 17 Pro. Like, you're not going to see the 17 Pro in anything else. They're just going to put the A18 in things.
The iPad Mini just got the A17 Pro. I wonder, and it sounds like the 11th gen iPad, which we'll talk about in a minute, might as well. So maybe that is a little bit of a different manufacturing. I don't know.
Or it could just be like they've got a whole bunch of them. They've got a contract for all these things, and they're not going to. They don't make the iPhone 15 Pro anymore. So, what are we going to do with 3 million chips?
I mean, maybe they make that A18. Maybe it's essentially that. where it's made with a different process than the M3 was. I mean, I'm not technical with chip stuff.
Yeah, it could be that like that's the kind of thing that until you break out an electron microscope, you don't know because Apple doesn't divulge it and stuff. But the A18 and 18 Pro are supposedly made on the new 3nm process, which is like slightly less dense but slightly faster. And there's all these like little, you could drill into the percentages, but the main thing about it is it's more reliable and easier to manufacture in greater quantities. So for the whole world jumping to 3nm, that's the volume production version of it.
Yeah, so if the MacBook Air comes out in January, February, like that's it. There's no more M3s, like they're gone, which is extremely quick for an Apple cycle, like 14 months maybe.
It's probably
introduction to
it would not shock me if the M4, despite being better, is a cheaper chip to make than the M3 for Apple.
Yeah. So probably MacBook Airs in, if not the end of January, and then probably in February, maybe early March. But that seems like that's pushing it.
I think if it's early March, it'll be part of the spring event.
A bigger.
Yeah. So we're expecting a spring event in March or April.
Yeah.
And the rumors say that like to expect the MacBook Air before that, but it's always possible it could be that instead.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the other things. What are the other things part of that? The big one is the new iPhone SE, which could be called 4th generation iPhone SE, but some are saying they're going to call it the iPhone 16e.
Yeah.
Which I think actually makes a lot of sense now that it's not going to be so different. And this is going to be a huge update because they've been way behind on updating the iPhone SE. So
it's almost 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. But even the one 3 years ago.
Right. 5 years really. Yeah.
Wasn't keeping up. It just kept the same old case. So now they're dumping the Touch ID and they're going with the full screen Face ID. It's going to have
better.
We're expecting an A18, so it's going to have Apple Intelligence, and it's going to be basically an iPhone
display.
Yeah, it's basically imagine an iPhone 14 with an A18 inside.
Right,
is the idea. It's also it's supposed to be the first product with Apple's own 5G modem, which is not something you as a user are going to notice, but it's going to be interesting to watch it.
Not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anybody who sits there while they're on their phone going like, oh, my connection is 20% faster than it used to. You know, you either get a signal or you don't. Right. So that's going to be the interesting thing. Is going to be to watch when this goes out in volume to a lot of people. Are people having problems? Are they getting good connections? You know,
right. If there's an issue,
look at that.
You'll know. I mean, the last time Apple had a antenna wireless issue was iPhone 6 with the band was blocking the signal when you hold it. Remember Steve Jobs?
You're
holding it wrong. Yeah. So like it's not out of the realm of possibility that when the iPhone 16e or /SE gets out there with Apple's own modem, that like there are issues.
Yes, things like antenna design are already figured out for the iPhone 14, whatever case they steal for the SE design. But they did have issues, for example, a while back when they kind of had a split. They had Intel for some, Intel's modem for some, and Qualcomm's modem for some. And the Intel modems were like finickier and didn't grab a signal as well. And, you know, if you were careful about which... It was that was one of those ones where it's like, if you get this carrier, you get the Intel modem. If you get that carrier, you get the Qualcomm, you know. Yeah, they had, so there's been issues. It'll be interesting to watch, but it's not like, I don't even expect them to hype it. I don't even expect them to mention it.
I doubt it, yeah.
You know, it'll just be a thing they do.
Just a quick point of clarification. AntennaGate was not the iPhone 6. That was Bendgate.
Okay. Right, yes.
And that was I think the iPhone 5. Let me just look it up real quick. I think it was the iPhone. Oh, the iPhone 4 was antenna 4. So just to clarify. But so with the iPhone 16e, I think it's pretty universally accepted that it's going to be more expensive than the current model, which is $429. It could go up to $499. It could be maybe even $549, $529. But the question I have is Apple still going to sell the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 14 when the iPhone SE is so close and in some ways better, particularly when it comes to Apple Intelligence
the
than those models?
The 14's gotta go for sure. Like the 15, I don't know if I don't know, was there action button or something like, or is that just 15 Pro?
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if they would still sell the 15, but the 14's got no reason to exist after this, so I expect that to be gone.
If they do rename it to 16E,
yeah,
that does indicate that they might put it on an annual upgrade cycle.
Yeah.
Every spring, so 17E, 18E, 18. So if that's the case, they might not need to keep those models around anymore because there's one that covers those.
Yeah. That would be a neat strategy. I would like to see that.
Yeah.
I just don't want them to get to where they start raising the price of this more affordable phone too much.
Right. I think $499 is acceptable. I think $549 might get into the realm of like, and now
anything
more. I get the iPhone 17. You know, so
if that first digit's a 5, I think that's going to be kind of a problem.
Right. I agree with that.
So, and there's some are saying like maybe they keep around stuff like the iPhone 14 or something at an even lower price, just in some regions like India and stuff like where
they could do
there's some real price pressure, and you're just not going to see them in the U.S., North America, Western Europe, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's $599 now. I'm sure they make a tidy profit on that. They could probably lower that to $449 and still make a bit of money. It's all older tech at this point.
And then the stuff for the spring event we are expecting is a new low cost iPad, like the entry level iPad, right?
Mm-hmm. The 11th gen, yep.
And maybe an iPad Air as well. Was that
maybe? Yeah, there's talk that would also skip the M3 to bring it back to our discussion of how Apple had major issues with the M3 and jump to the M4. So the iPad Air was updated last year. They introduced that new 13-inch model and gave it an M2. So they could just give it a small refresh, give it an M4, maybe, I don't know what else, maybe new colors or something. And the 11th gen iPad, that was released in 2022. So it's 2 years old, over 2 years old. And that doesn't currently run Apple Intelligence. So this new update would bring it probably similar to the iPad mini with an A17 Pro and 8 gigs of RAM inside it. It already has a landscape camera, so it doesn't need that.
Right. So that event would be March or April. We've seen spring events in both months. And it's also possible that there's no event and these are just web releases. But
that seems somewhat unlikely particularly with the new iPhone.
Yeah, and especially if they release what has been the other rumored product that could be coming early this year, which is people are calling it the HomePad, but it doesn't have that name. It's a home hub, but it would have, rumors are, about a 7-inch screen. This is going to be a really low cost device. It's meant to be a few $100 device, not like a iPad price, like cheaper than an iPad,
Right, because it has just that one. So it'll have a new operating system. So it'll look like an iPad, but it won't be an iPad.
And it'll be square, right? They say it's square. It's meant to be. You can mount it on a wall. You can put it on a table. Mm-hmm. It's going to have a camera. It'll do FaceTime. It's supposed to have an interface that is derived from standby mode from iPhone, so like widgets that show time and stuff like that, and photos and stuff like that. But it'll hook into Apple services, music and FaceTime and stuff like that, but not have an app store and not have a home screen with a grid of apps that you tap on and stuff like that. And it's meant to control all your smart home devices, and do FaceTime and stuff. That product, and it'll supposedly support Apple Intelligence. So That product is said to be maybe launching this spring. If they did, I imagine that's the kind of thing they would want to be a part of an event, so they can describe, hey, this new thing. It's kind of like a new use case for Apple, so they want to do that. But there's also rumors that is being delayed till later this year. So we actually don't know. Rumors are both places.
They could always tease it, and then ship it in the fall.
Ship it later.
They've done that with HomePod. They did that with the iMac Pro. They did that with the Mac Pro. Like they've done that numerous times in the past.
A lot of times when there's like a whole new area for Apple, they
Vision Pro is another example.
It comes out 6 months later. So Apple Watch, all those things. So that would all speak to a pretty big March or April.
Yeah. That's an important event for if all the things that were rumored, plus maybe a new AirTag with some small improvements to privacy and stuff. That's a pretty big spring event. As big as like 2 years ago we got the Mac Studio and the Studio Display. That was a big one, and this is probably even bigger because of the products that are involved.
Yeah,
and the sense that people are going to want to run out and buy them.
The new AirTag is latest rumors are expecting it later this year, maybe not the spring event, but it's just like an update to the ultra wideband chip and stuff, so it works further away. It's not like a whole new design or anything like that. So it could kind of drop whenever. It could be a web release. I don't even expect them to call it like AirTag 2. It'll just be the AirTag.
And second gen on the website or something.
Yeah, in the fine print where they need to differentiate it, it'll say that, but everywhere it'll just say AirTag, and you'll just get AirTag.
So that's
that's April, March. That's April, March, and April.
And then there's one more: is that the big iOS update, iOS 18.4, macOS 2.4. The big part of that is that's the last tranche of Apple Intelligence features from iOS 18.
Right. The new Siri being the biggest part of that.
Yeah, that'll be Siri that has personal context. Look at all of everything on your phone and figure out things about you, right? So that it can answer personal questions. And that all happens on your device. But also a huge explosion in what Apple calls app intents, which are developer hooks. They're tools for developers that they can build into their apps to let Siri do something within their app. And right now, app intents are very, very minimal. They're just for like they're just for like messaging and music apps, right? They're adding hundreds that people can add in all kinds of different apps. And so that's going to take a lot of testing, but it's expected to be finally released sometime in the March, April timeframe, probably around the same time as this event.
And Gurman says that app intent is a big part of that Home Hub, which is fairly obvious.
Yeah. Yep. Especially if, and I really hope it works this way, if it already HomePods have a good capability of understanding who is talking. If you're a member of that home, it can recognize your voice, and stuff. Yeah. So if it makes it so that for members of your home, you can ask Siri to do something that it does on your phone, right? Like you have the app on your phone, the new Home Hub thing, like hears you, sends the request to your phone does the thing. Like,
which
that would be really great.
Yeah, and that's absolutely something that we could see doing. Like Apple TV and the iPhone talk to each other all the time. Like that's all built in to Apple's, the integration between the OSs already.
Yeah. In fact, this more than most things, this is not going to be a platform. This is an accessory, right? This is it. It's not going to have an app store. It runs only Apple services. It's built around Apple's smart home support, not other people's. So this is really meant to be, even more than AirPods, not something you use with non-Apple products. This is like Apple Watch. Like, this is for people who already have other Apple products as an accessory to that.
So after March, April, we got the May, June timeline. June is WWDC. May, there was a
Nothing ever
rumor.
happens in May.
No, but there
We'll
was
get
a rumor.
11.5 probably around there before WWDC.
some
Yeah,
OS
just
Be a
bug
updates
small
fixes and
update.
stuff. Yeah.
before the previews of the new operating systems at WWDC.
Mhm.
There was a report that Apple could release a M4 Mac Studio the first half of the year.
Mhm.
There was some thought that Apple would release at the same time as the MacBook Air, but then Apple kind of reconsidered that. So maybe it comes out at WWDC.
Yeah, I mean, if it's largely the same as the current model, like
Yeah.
looking wise,
Yeah.
the big wild card there is the M4 Ultra. Will Apple want to spotlight it? Because there wasn't an M3 Ultra.
Yep.
They haven't talked about it in 2 years, and it's going to be, obviously much more powerful, capable, more memory, blah blah blah. That could be a WWDC thing, like it was last time, where they specifically talk about that chip, like they did with the Mac Pro. So maybe it gets released then. I'd be surprised if it just kind of arrived randomly, but I guess it could.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right now. Most of the rumors don't expect that to happen in a spring event. But still, we've heard first half of this year. So my guess is if they have an M4 Ultra, it's going to be an update to the Mac Studio, which looks the same. It's a chip change,
Yeah.
And Mac Pro, and we'll see those at WWDC, which is always in the first week of June.
Yeah, first Monday, I think.
Yeah, the first Monday of June. Usually.
First full week of June, rather.
First full week. Yeah.
First full week of June. So, and that M4 Ultra brings with it Thunderbolt 5 compatibility. So those would be the two main features of those two Macs. Otherwise,
will Apple redesign the Mac Studio?
Next year.
Well, the Pro, yeah, sure. There's always that. But so the Mac Mini got a redesign a couple of months ago. I guess there's not much. It basically got a redesign to look like the Mac Studio.
Yeah.
So I guess there really isn't much other than moving the power button on the bottom that Apple could do to the Mac Mini.
You mean the Mac Studio? Yeah.
The Mac Studio.
I don't expect much in the way of a change. It's got the right ports in the right places. It's the right size. It's the right and I think they designed that with these M chips in mind. The sort of thermal needs of future Ultra Series M chips. Does it dissipate 80 watts of thermal? Whatever. So, yeah, I think that's going to be that.
There's some talk that the Ultra won't be. So the M2 Ultra, which is 2 years old now, is a fusion situation where it's basically two M2 Maxes fused together.
Right.
There's some talk that won't be the case this time around, and it'll be more of its own thing. So
that'd be interesting.
Yeah. So I think Apple will probably want to spotlight all that because of the market it's designed for. Like they want to hear about all that stuff and the speeds and the processing and how it's made and that type of stuff. I think that's probably going to be a WWDC thing. That's my guess.
Speaking of WWDC, so that's when we'll see iOS 19, macOS 16, Apple Watch 12. Is that what we're on now?
Yep, it'll be 12.
And because it's software, we don't really hear anything about what's in the works for those operating systems.
Vision OS 3.
Right, Vision OS 3.
Yeah, we say this every year. Like Apple needs to homogenize all these numbers.
Yeah, the numbers. Just
like we work in this stuff day in day out, and we forget. Like
everything.
Said, is it on 12? Is it on 4? Like just make it all 20 or something. 15, whatever.
25. It's the year. It's the year.
Yeah, there you go.
Whatever 25, and
that's actually a really good idea. And then make it then just match it up. Yeah, that's perfect.
Right. They don't care at Apple because they probably use code names for everything.
They do, yeah.
So they don't go into that like we do.
They come into this. So it's and it would be normalizing around year names would be great because then you would know when you're out of date when you can check your parent's computer. You can tell if it's 4 years out of date. It'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
I agree.
We should be running the world's most valuable company. All right, so the big things we don't have a lot. We'll start to get rumors about those OSs as it gets closer. The big one, the only real information we have so far is that in iOS 19, it's supposed to be another big step for Apple Intelligence. We'll see more Apple Intelligence features. Key part of that is going to be a Siri that works a lot like the ChatGPT advanced voice mode that they just rolled out does, where you can have like conversations with it. You can talk to it directly, interrupt it, talk to it like a person, not just like issue voice commands, but
Right.
talk to it like a human. They call it LLM based, whatever. But that and another explosion of app intents to make Siri do more within more of the apps that you do with apps that support it. And expect expect that to come in an update to iOS 19 in early 2026. Very much like the Siri update is coming next month for iOS 18. It's the same sort of thing. In fact, expect a lot of iOS 19's features to work like that. iOS 18 is like a preview of iOS 19. It's going to come in pieces. It's going to come over several months, and the big Siri updates come in the next year. That's kind of all we know so far. I say with all of this push into smart home stuff that Apple's doing, like the Home Hub, but also they're doing new products for next year and all that, I'd be shocked if iOS 19 didn't have a big update to the Home app and HomeKit and, all that stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That would be crazy to me if we had this same home situation when they're making cameras and doorbells and stuff. So
we've heard reports that Apple's working on its own, some call it Apple GPT.
they've got something internally,
Yeah, but we haven't heard anything substantial about it, just that it's in the works. But we don't know if it'll be ready by this June. Apple wants to do it, but whether it's ready or not, we haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not rolling out until spring 2026 to customers anyways, they've got a lot of time. In fact, if they did, it's going to have to be pretty impressive because they can't just catch up to ChatGPT fall 2024 in spring 2026. Like they need they need to skate where the puck is going, as Kretzky said. So they've got an internal one that's like a chatbot situation. They're publishing a lot of research. It's actually pretty interesting throughout 2024. If you follow the academic side of machine learning and AI, Apple's went hard. When they dumped the car project, they went hard onto AI, and they've been publishing a lot of interesting stuff. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So then after WWDC brings July and August, and that's often the months where we're sitting around going, "Oh, can September get here already yet?"
Yeah, that's the big beta months. That's when all the operating systems are in developer beta first, and then a month later, about a month later, public beta. And we're seeing all the features roll out, and we're saying, "Oh, this doesn't look good. This doesn't." And they keep changing stuff. There's a lot of change going on. Things are real buggy. It's kind of neat if you're into the software. That's a neat time. But other than that, there's just not a lot going on other than all the rumors for the new iPhone start rolling out, which brings you into September.
It's September, probably like the second half of September, usually, what Apple has. That's the event everyone knows about, the iPhone event.
Usually the second week of September is the event, and then pre-order that Friday, and then they ship the following Friday, which is the second half. Yeah.
So we'll get the iPhone 17, this rumored iPhone 17 Air. Apple wants to go thinner with the iPhone. The Apple Watch. Are we on 11 now?
Series 11, maybe.
It'll be 11.
It's either Series 11 or that rumored Series X that we never got.
Yeah.
Right.
They could do that as well. Make it like kind of a second 10. but most likely it's going to look the same. It's going to have a lot of the same features, maybe a new sensor, some small stuff.
Yeah,
the
there's
iPhone 17
potentially potentially high blood pressure warnings is a potential new feature, but other than that, we haven't heard much.
and the iPhone 17 Air is an interesting one because it's going to be like Apple's going to pipe it as like the future of the iPhone. Like here it is, and
Right.
it's going to be, it'll be thinner and it'll look different, but it's also going to have reportedly less battery, a non-pro chip, maybe one camera instead of three cameras. Like it's going to have like a higher price tag than the iPhone 17 Plus, which is the model that it's going to replace. They say. So figure $999 maybe.
Some have said a higher price. Some say the same price. It's basically trying to replace the Plus model with the one that's the one that sells the least. And
which I don't understand. I had the Plus. Like, it's a great phone. I don't know why people don't want it.
I think historically, I think either people want the cheapest new iPhone, which the Plus isn't, or if they're going to spend that much, they go Pro.
I guess.
And so it kind of falls in this middle ground. So they're replacing the middle ground they'll still have a regular iPhone 17. There just won't be an iPhone 17 Plus. There'll be this new Air super thin model. And then they'll have the two Pro models, the regular and the Max. And all of them might get this new design where instead of the square circle camera bump in the back, they get this like across
like a bar
rectangle, like a bar across the top, kind of like Google's done on some of their Pixel phones and stuff. But even if they don't all get that, this new 17 Air is supposed to thinnest iPhone ever. 6 millimeters, maybe less. Like super
very, very thin.
Get ready for Bendgate too.
I don't know if that matters to people, but if it does, like some reports say like 5.5 millimeters, which is insanely thin for a phone.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
But they also say the thinnest part is 5.5 millimeters.
Right, which, so it could be like a tapered situation. Yeah.
Yeah, or is that just like an internal? I don't know. But it's not. Apparently, they don't have room for an eSIM, which means eSIM. They don't have room for a SIM tray, which means they can't sell it in China. Like, it's going to be an interesting thing. It's the first time in a long time that Apple's kind of really changed up the whole iPhone physical thing at all. And then for the other ones, expect a new chip. It's going to be faster. The cameras are going to be better. Front cameras are getting upgraded to 24 megapixels. Like, it's very much the things you expect from the other iPhones of like, oh, it's faster and the cameras are better. And then the rest is software, right? We're not expecting anything really new like the action, like we got the action button, that's going to be there. The camera button's going to be there. We're not expecting like new other physical stuff so far. We haven't heard anything.
And then when the phones start to ship, that's when Apple drops the next version of iOS and iPad OS.
Like a week after the event, Monday or after the event, it usually comes out, or Wednesday. I think Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like a couple days before they start to ship, we'll get iOS 19. The rumors, I don't think we mentioned this previously. The rumor is that it's going to support all of the same phones as iOS 18, which is, that's pretty impressive. That means the iPhone 10R is going to have 6 years of support, which is, kudos to Apple for that.
Yeah. They've done that before, but usually the cutoff's around 5.
Yeah.
A lot of features won't be available on those older phones. Like especially a lot of the
Apple
AI
Intelligence,
features.
obviously, yeah.
Sure, all that, but like there's other ML features and stuff that are cut off at certain times, like selecting text and images and stuff like that. We might get a new Apple Watch Ultra.
Yeah, we're a couple years behind that. We just got that new color. Yep. And the Apple Watch SE is also rumored to be getting a new kind of a new design, maybe plastic, maybe cheaper, something that's more geared towards like a true budget model, maybe geared towards kids.
Yep.
Much different than the current model.
And the other thing I think we what we are expecting to see kind of in the back half of the back end of the year, and September seems like a likely place, but it could be later, is a new AirPods Pro. AirPods Pro 3. They are supposed to lean into health stuff. So
which the 2 already has started doing with the hearing aid stuff from last year, the software update that did that.
Yep. So expect a tweaked design, better audio quality, better like noise canceling and stuff. Supposed to be an H3 chip. Who knows? Maybe that means better battery life. But one of the things people are talking about is that they're going to do heart rate stuff in that. Maybe probably only when you've got a workout going. But like when you start a workout with your Apple Watch or something, it'll take your heart rate through your ears or something.
October, November. Towards the end of October, we'll probably get an announcement about the M5 MacBook Pro. That's in the rumor. And this would be just a chip upgrade because all the rumors are that 2026 is going to be the big MacBook Pro revamp to kind of commemorate the 25th anniversary of the MacBook Pro. So just an M5 upgrade this time around. And, that'll probably be just a press release. It's probably you're not going to do an event, I don't think.
Yeah, maybe they did that. So this year was a press release. Last year was an event. Both could have been press releases. Both could have been events, honestly. I mean, it depends on what they decide to do with that. But yeah, it looks like a pretty tame update next year. Like if you're looking for a MacBook Pro, next year looks like the year where it's really going to get a bunch of upgrades, maybe a new design, OLED, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, this year M5 is good, great, but not much else.
It's possible if we don't see Mac Pro or Mac Studio or either or of those at WWDC that they show up in October instead. It's supposed to be a new Apple TV that we would expect to drop after the September event. That's
right, and
a pretty tame update. Like we don't expect design changes or anything like that. It's going to be a processor upgrade, and again, that's another one that's supposed to use Apple's own Wi-Fi chip, Apple's own Bluetooth chip, which is they're starting to do all their own wireless networking chips. And possibly a new HomePad Mini, same situation, using their own slight upgrade to the processor, using their own networking processors.
And those two, the HomePod Mini and the Apple TV, the new Apple TV, will also tie into that whole smart home thing.
Yeah, it's possible that a lot of what they offer isn't like a hardware feature. They're updating the hardware to enable some new thing, some new smart home stuff with them that we'll hear about at WWDC, right? We'll hear all about the new home app and the new home this, and
you think we'll get it there?
It would not surprise me if part of iOS 19 and tvOS 19 and all the other stuff is a redesigned and updated home app, more home app features on your Apple TV.
Oh, you're talking about I thought you were talking about the home operating system. I understand. Now you're talking about the app that we already have.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm talking about the home app. I think that the operating system that'll just come on. They won't even talk about it. It won't have a name. It'll just that device will be an accessory you buy. They won't even name the OS like Home OS or whatever. It's just.
Yep.
You won't even know what version of the OS it's running. It's just an appliance. But yeah. So I think there's the new Apple TV and HomePods are just I think those are going to be as much about refreshing them and Apple adjusting their costs to manufacture than they are about bringing amazing new features that change the Apple TV or HomePod forever for you.
Right.
But they're expected late this year and probably after September. Probably if they do an event for the Macs in October, or they'll just drop on the press on the website or whatever.
So that kind of wraps up the year. There are a few products that haven't been mentioned on the production release schedule. I guess we could start with the Vision Pro. I mean, there are rumors
Well,
that Apple's working on the low-cost one.
that's been specifically not mentioned as in not coming out. like
Right.
if you're waiting for an update to the Vision Pro, or rather, if you're waiting for a new model that is cheaper that you could buy, it's not coming until 2026.
Any kind of redesign isn't expected, or for till at least 2026. There have been some rumors that Apple's just going to update the existing one, going from the M2 to like an M4 or M5, but that's all it is.
Right.
As a stopgap before it in 2026, 2027 starts releasing new Vision products. There's been one rumor about that. It's not very solid. You know, we really don't know with that one.
Yeah. The iMac wasn't mentioned in the release schedule, which I guess is kind of surprising, but also not surprising.
So I had a thought about that. So it's M1 to M3. They skipped the M2. But last year I got the M4, and I think it's also because the same reason. Apple wants to get rid of those M3s as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So it normally would have gone M3, M5, but I gave it the M4 so it can skip the M5 and now go to skip the M5 and now go to the M6. I think.
Yeah, I think
the iMac isn't the kind of sorry, Roman. It's not really the kind of computer that people need to update or are looking to update the chip every year.
Yeah, it feels like the iMac is on a 2-year cadence. You know,
which is fine.
Probably not shorter than that.
There's a perpetual rumor of a larger iMac. Yes. That might be an iMac Pro, and get an M4 Pro chip or even an M4 Max, or the option something like a 32-inch display. And that rumor pops up every now and then it never happens. But that could very easily be a WWDC thing this year. That doesn't,
It's always couched as Apple is investigating, Apple is researching. Right. It's never that, they made an order of X amount of these displays or whatever. It's never anything solid.
I'm sure they've got prototypes in the lab, and they're really it's all coming down to, okay, how much does this cost to manufacture? What can we sell it for? What's the market going to look like? The market considerations more than anything else. I would love a 32-inch iMac Pro. Add a couple more ports on there, put an M4 Pro in there. That would be a really cool, especially if they put HDR in the thing. We also are expecting at some point Apple to update the Proto Display XDR and the Studio Display.
Yeah.
Those are also products that they don't have any need to update every year, but they are getting a little long in the tooth.
Studio Display is a couple of years. Pro Display is like 3 to 4 years now. It's been a while, and it doesn't have HDR. It doesn't have.
Pro Display does.
I'm sorry, it doesn't have ProMotion. It doesn't have, or rather, it's not I'm drawing a blank. It doesn't have the same technology that's in the MacBook Pro, and now I'm drawing a blank on what that display technology is. It's either mini LED or whatever the display tech is.
Oh,
it's not that.
Well, it's already the brightest. Like it goes up to 1,000 nits and can hold it for a long time, like a full display 1,000 nits, which is the point of it. It's this big thing with a bunch of cooling to keep its brightest thing going for long periods of time. And it's super color accurate and stuff. So that's not really the issue. What it's kind of missing is maybe size a little bit, and it can't go over 60 hertz, right? It needs and as we start to see different kinds of content authored for different things that might go over 60 people, might need that. I think the Studio Display is in bigger need of an update just because it's got no HDR. Its size is kind of okay, but it could be bigger, They'll update the camera, they'll update the mics, they'll do those things. So
so those are the major products. And to kind of wrap this up, we haven't heard anything about a new Apple Pencil.
A fifth one.
Or is it sixth? Is it? No, I
We've
think
lost
they got
track.
one of one.
There's so many pencils now, we can't keep track of
There's
them.
1, 2, USB-C, and Pro at the moment. I assume one's got to be going away at some point.
One exists only for certain products that can't do.
There aren't any that they sell anymore. One in either like 2 covers all of it, but they still sell one.
I think it's just sold for people who have older products and they still
lose their old.
But Apple doesn't
Apple
care
pencil.
about those people. They never do.
So there's. I don't think we're going to see there's no rumors anyways of a new Apple Pencil.
No.
So
no, I think it's set now. At some point, 1 and 2 will go away, and it'll be USB-C, or they'll call it Apple Pencil and Apple Pencil Pro, which is how it should have been all along.
Yes. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. That does it for this episode of the Macworld Podcast, episode 917. Thanks to Jason Cross.
Thank you.
Thanks to Michael Simon.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks to you, the audience. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to the Macworld Podcast in the podcast app, on Spotify, on YouTube at the Macworld Podcast channel, or through any other podcast app. If you have any comments or questions, send us an email at podcast@macworld.com or contact us through Blue Sky, Facebook, Threads, or X. Just search for Macworld and look for the blue mouse logo. Join us in the next episode of the Macworld Podcast as we talk about the latest in the world of Apple. See you next time.